Hello and welcome back to I Gauge It. This is your host, Gage Milton, and today we are talking about the HomePod. So today, Apple just finally sold out of HomePods. Not the HomePod Mini, but the original HomePod that came out a few years ago. So it used to be $350, now it's only $300. We heard rumors a few months ago that Apple stopped manufacturing the HomePod and we're just going to let them run out until they were bought. So while supplies last. The space gray ones got bought out pretty quickly, but the white ones still remained for a while. But they are now sold out. So this probably means Apple will no longer be selling any more HomePods. They probably won't make any more of this design, the bigger one, the original HomePod. But they do have their HomePod Mini, which is a good sign because that means they will still support HomePod type software. So I was worried when the HomePod original was not doing that well, and Apple would discontinue it and then just drop support, in a few years, and then I've got a brick in my house because I have one of the original HomePods. So since they've got the HomePod Mini, it's a very good sign that the HomePod and the HomePod Mini and whatever HomePods they come out with will share the same type of software, hopefully for a long, long time. So, should you go for a HomePod or should you go for HomePod Minis? If you're still in the market and you're on the fence and now Apple sold out, well, you can always buy a HomePod somewhere. I'm sure eBay, maybe Best Buy. You can always find a used HomePod, original HomePod somewhere. They'll always be their price might not be the same, but if you really, really want an older HomePod, they are probably still available somewhere. But should you get a HomePod, $300, or 3 HomePod Minis? Because each HomePod Mini is $100. So the HomePod Mini is a lot smaller, and I have 2 of these in my home, and I can definitely tell there's a sound difference. So one HomePod sounds way better than 2 HomePod Minis. Just the bass is so much better. Like, I'm not an audiophile, but man, I love my HomePod's bass. It's almost too loud, and so I've never had to crank my HomePod up to 100%. I use my HomePod Mini or Minis with my Apple TV as my speakers, and I'm constantly having to pump them up to almost 100% to get them to a good sound that even just my TV would play. And my TV's native speakers do get loud enough, but they're just not, the quality's just not there. And I also have a subwoofer, an AirPlay subwoofer that I added to my mesh of devices for the TV. And altogether, it makes it sound really good. I just have to crank it up to about 90 to 100%, and that suffices for my TV. And my HomePod Minis are in stereo mode. That is something that you can do, where you can pair 2 HomePod Minis together and they can play left and right channels. And don't get me wrong, they do sound really, really good. They just need, I wish they were louder. I wish they had more bass. But if you have a Apple TV or an Apple ecosystem, then I would just try to stick with Apple stuff. Like, you can get Amazon products or Google products that can generally do the same thing. Voice Assistant have a good speaker for cheaper. But the HomePod Mini beats out anything in the competition that is its same size. And then it's either equal to or just a little bit worse than one of the devices in the same price range. So 3 HomePod Minis versus 2 or 1 HomePod original. It is a tough sell. Like, if I had the choice and if I lost all my HomePods and had to rebuy either 1 HomePod or 3 HomePod Minis, if I don't need them in multiple rooms, if you just need 1, then as long as the HomePod original is supported, I actually like that HomePod better. It's bigger. It just looks nicer, in my opinion. It sounds way better, and it does the exact same things that the HomePod Minis do. If you're trying to do your TV setup, kind of like I do, where it's a left and right channel with them as your speakers, and occasionally you can AirPlay to them and play music, and you want them in multiple rooms, if you're going to be buying lots and lots of them, then I would go with HomePod Minis just to save costs, because most people won't really realize the sound difference. And when you have so many, if you're going to have 3, they can do the job. If you really, 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 really want the bassy sound, there are other speakers that you can get that are not HomePods. You could get a AirPlay just device, a AirPlay 2 device, like a Sonos or something. I'm sure those have great speakers inside them too, and you can add a subwoofer. And just pricing, it couldn't get expensive. But if you're going for just one HomePod, go for the HomePod original. I don't know how long it's going to be supported. I hope it will be supported for a long, long, long time. But there's no promises that it will be supported for a while. But I don't see any reason why it will be unsupported, because this is the original HomePod is working off of, I believe, an iPhone 6 chip. I forget which chip that is, but it's basically got an iPhone chip inside it. And these chips last a long time. And all this HomePod is doing is playing music, listening to surrounding sound so it can get the sound best for you in the room. And that's basically it. So I don't see any problem with that being supported down the road. But if you want multiple for your home, if you got the money for it, maybe get one HomePod original for the main room that you just want volume for. And then if you want multiple other HomePods around the house, just get the minis. You don't necessarily need a ton of just the HomePod, because they are loud and they will fill a room easily. And they also can pair together. So if you have an iPhone, then you can add them as you're playing music from a HomePod. You can just add other HomePods. You can ask the HomePod to play everywhere, and it will play everywhere on all the speakers, which will definitely fill the room. And yeah, so it is sad that the original HomePod did not do as well as Apple intended. But I'm glad that they came out with the HomePod Mini. I'm hopeful for a new, bigger HomePod. That would be extremely cool if they added one, maybe with like a screen or something like that, where it's kind of like the Amazon devices, where they just get a little bit more practical when you can see the information that you're asking for, but also have a great speaker on it. So that, I think, wraps it up. The main question is, should you get a HomePod versus the HomePod Mini? Do you need to go on eBay? If it doesn't really matter to you, if you just want a Apple device, and this is for Apple people, if you've got an Android device, you can't even set these things up. So if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you were considering getting a HomePod just to try it out, then $100 for a HomePod is not bad. So just get a mini. Just get a HomePod Mini, and it will serve you very well. And if you decide that you want to up and get better bass and better volume, you have an extra big room that you just want filled with one HomePod, or you can get a few HomePod Minis and surround the room, and that will fill it up, but the bass just won't really be there as much. There is bass, but just not as much. Then you would get a HomePod, original HomePod. But long story short, probably since the HomePod Mini is still in stores and was just created, I believe last year, then you should probably go with that because it's newer, and just wait out for a newer, bigger HomePod with maybe a screen. But as long as Apple supports the original HomePod, then it's still a great buy. It is a little expensive. If they put it down to $200, it would be a deal breaker. Like, one HomePod is easily worth 2 HomePod Minis. Is it worth $100 more than that? Not really. But long story short, if you're just trying it out, get a HomePod Mini, see if you like it, get used to it, and then if you want to up it up, get a HomePod original from eBay. And I'm sure there's hundreds and thousands of them around in the world with people not needing them anymore. But yeah, thank you for listening. I will try to do some tech tips and tech reviews and just updates. I'll try to do it daily. We shall see how I do. Nice and short, like this one and yesterday. Just talking mainly Apple, because that's what my fascination is, and that's what I know most of. But if something Google or Amazon or Android, something like that comes out in the news, and I happen to know something about it enough to talk about it, then I'll talk about it. But mainly Apple stuff here. But thank you for joining me today, and I will hopefully talk to you really soon.